sustained experience of non-dual reality often isn't experienced longer than 5 minutes for most people. So there were a lot of methods were produced to experience this non-dual reality, and this goes way back into the Vedic civilization and other cultures around that time, even in the birth of Buddhism with Gautama the Buddha. So a lot of the first fasting the mind philosophies were born. So the first philosophies to fast our mind, to empty out the mind and eliminate the contents of our mind to perceive this non-dual experience, more than just for a brief moment, but for extended periods of time. So when we look back into the Vedic civilization, and we find this in the Upanishads, you find the concept of neti in Sanskrit. So neti means not this, or not this nor that. You get my drift. Now, what this means with neti, a lot of people assume, especially in the modern Advaita Vedanta circles and people who follow certain gurus around the world, not this, not the body, they say, not the body. So they start to ignore the body. And as you know, and as I know, and as everybody knows, as soon as you start to ignore the body and just pretend you're not that, you develop a lot of psychosis in your own mind, and your body becomes unhealthy. And the body and mind are, in a sense, related. So you are affecting your cognitive abilities. So the more mature way to see neti, and the way it was explained in Advaita Vedanta, is not this, meaning not the activity and the contents of your mind that keep bubbling up to distract you from remaining as the self, as the Atman. That's what neti is. So methods to strengthen that ability within our consciousness to perceive the contents and activity in our mind were further developed, and then we have the idea of viveka in Sanskrit, which is translated as discrimination or discernment, the ability to look in our mind or be aware in our own consciousness of the activity bubbling within our mind that often distracts us. If something's passing, oh, look at that. We're like this in our mind all the time. We're distracted by images and thoughts and concepts, and we lose sight of the Atman, of the self, of our pure nature. And so viveka was developed, the ability to discern in your own mind. Now, they went even further into another Sanskrit word, which is vairagya. Now, vairagya can be translated as non-reaction. Now, what this means is when you develop the ability of viveka, of discernment, and being able to discriminate in your own mind, you don't react to impure thoughts or actions that are not needed, that your mind may think that it needs to do, and you begin not to react to everything that your mind bubbles up within you. And you also train this in some sense in the physical world. If there's a situation where there is no need for your input, you remain quiet and you stay in your humble place without engaging all the time in the world. And this has an ability to fast the mind, to cleanse the mind, and to repair the cognition, your own cognition. This is one of the points of fasting the mind, to repair your own cognition. And in the modern day, when we have a look at neti, viveka, vairagya from the ancient times, has become more of the modern practice of self-inquiry, which becomes famous from the 20th century sage Ramana Maharishi, where Ramana always focused on the who am I question. This is what self-inquiry is. So you're practicing viveka in your own mind. You're always seeing, who is it that is identifying with the contents in this activity in your mind. So you remain in the inquiry. And for Ramana's case, almost his whole life, he remained in the inquiry. Like, who is this that likes music? Who is this that is angry in this situation? Always being super conscious of what's going on in your own mind and not reacting, having the vairagya training not to react to anything. And this is why Ramana Maharishi, he spent a lot of his life in silence. He spent 7 years at Skanda Ashram on the holy hill of Arunachala and did not say a word. And so to further this practice, this has become sort of a staple in Advaita Vedanta, is the method of self-inquiry, to remain in the who am I question, one of his disciples is Papaji, and Papaji lived in Lucknow in India, and he became famous in the 80s and 90s, and he had a lot of disciples, and one of his disciples was Mooji, who is a popular spiritual teacher in the present day. And when Mooji was his disciple back in the 90s, he had his own struggles with the practice of Advaita Vedanta, the remaining in the inquiry, and so forth and so on. And Mooji said to Papaji, he wants to know the truth, and so forth and so on. And Papaji said, if you want to know the truth, you must completely disappear. So that kind of hit Mooji like a ton of bricks, that to know the truth, he must completely disappear. So what that means is Mooji was supposed to eliminate the ego, actually the whole persona system. And this is one of the focuses in Advaita Vedanta, the idea that we can eliminate the person within us to become the Atman,